I still remember the way he said it like I was beneath him, like my dreams were some kind of joke. It was a slow Tuesday evening at the diner when he came in, all puffed up in a suit that probably cost more than I made in 2 weeks. He leaned on the counter, arrogantly smug, and watched me pour coffee like I was putting on a comedy act for his entertainment. I didn't know him personally, but he was dating Lisa, at the time our assistant manager. She adored him, though I never understood why. He had this cruel edge to his humor, always laughing at others rather than with them. That night, when I brought him his coffee and wiped the counter down, he said it so casually, like he was doing me a favor. "You know, Emily," he said, "you'll never be more than a waitress." It wasn't just the words. It was the way he looked me up and down, dismissively, like my apron and name tag were a permanent brand of failure. I forced a smile then. But inside, something cracked, not out of sadness, out of fire. What he didn't realize was that I didn't mind being a waitress. I loved the people. I loved the flow of the diner, the clatter of dishes, the smell of fresh brewed coffee. But he wasn't just questioning my job, he was questioning my potential. That night, after my shift, I sat in the break room, sipping stale coffee and staring at the floor, thinking about all the times people like him had made me feel small. And for the first time in years, I pulled out the old notebook from my locker, the one where I sketched floor plans, scribbled menu ideas, and wrote down the name of the restaurant I always dreamed of opening, Ember's Place. The next few weeks, his words wouldn't leave my mind. They echoed between orders, followed me on my commute, slipped into my dreams. I started noticing everything around me differently: how the diner was run, the waste in the kitchen, the timing between orders, the gaps in service. I realized I'd been absorbing lessons without even trying. I knew how to run a place like this, I just didn't have the means. But that didn't mean I never would. I picked up extra shifts. I stopped going out. I canceled my Netflix, sold some old clothes online, and even gave up my weekend shifts at the club just to attend free online business courses. I started saving aggressively, researching fiercely. I downloaded podcasts, devoured YouTube interviews with restaurateurs, and emailed every local businesswoman I could for mentorship. Most didn't reply. A few sent words of encouragement. One, an older woman named Carla who ran a food truck downtown, took me seriously. She became my mentor, meeting me every Sunday morning to talk finances, suppliers, hiring, branding. Meanwhile, at the diner, things began to shift. I started making small suggestions that improved workflow. I trained new hires even when it wasn't my job. I was invisible to management, but not to the regulars. One couple left me a $200 tip and a note that read, "You'll own a place like this one day. We believe in you." I kept that note in my notebook, and I kept dreaming of Ember's Place, not a flashy restaurant, but warm, beautiful, filled with light and real food and real people. A place that honored everyone who walked in, not just the ones in suits. The fire inside me grew, fueled by every shift, every rude customer, every eye roll from Lisa, and yes, every memory of that man's smirk when he called me just a waitress. It took me almost 2 years of grinding, 2 years of working double shifts, skipping vacations, and slowly building a savings account that no one knew about. I kept it quiet, even from my friends. Every dollar I saved felt like a brick I was laying in my own future. Carla connected me to a small business grant program for women entrepreneurs, and I applied with trembling hands. My business plan was rough but honest. I called the restaurant Ember's Place after my grandmother Ember, who taught me how to cook with heart. The day I got the acceptance letter was the same day the diner announced it was being sold. The owner, old Mr. Thomas, was retiring. Most of the staff panicked. Lisa was furious, but I saw a chance. I made an appointment to meet with Mr. Thomas and offered him a proposal. I didn't have the full purchase amount, but I had 60% ready, and I asked him to consider a seller-financed arrangement for the rest. To my surprise, he agreed, said he'd watched me over the years and knew I'd treat the place right. I cried right there in his office. By the end of that month, I signed the paperwork. The diner, the one where I'd been dismissed as just a waitress, was now mine. I changed everything except the charm. I painted, refurbished booths, revamped the menu, added vegan options, and rebranded. The new sign read Ember's Place in glowing amber letters. I hired former co-workers who had been overlooked. I gave a shy dishwasher a chance at line. Cook, I invited Carla to cut the ribbon. We opened on a rainy Thursday with a packed dining room. And there, sitting at the corner booth like a shadow from the past, was him, the man who told me I'd never be more than a waitress. His smirk froze when he saw me in a tailored apron, handing menus to guests. He walked up to the counter, looking around, trying to make sense of the changes. "This place looks ... different," he said. I nodded. It should. I own it now. I wish I could describe the look on his face. It wasn't just shock, it was something deeper. Disbelief, insecurity, maybe even regret. He stuttered something about how impressive it was, how he'd always thought I had potential. I didn't respond. I just smiled and asked if he'd like to be seated. He did, alone. I let one of my new servers handle him. I had more important things to do, like thank the elderly couple who had come back for the grand opening, or sign a delivery invoice, or chat with a young girl who said she wanted to be a chef someday. Ember's Place became more than a restaurant, it became a community. We hosted single parent nights, poetry slams, job fairs, and free breakfasts for veterans. The media caught on. We got local news coverage, then online buzz. Former waitress buys the diner she was mocked in. I didn't want this story to be about him, but the irony was too poetic for journalists to ignore. He never came back, but his words stayed with me, not as pain, but as fuel. I started giving talks at women's centers, encouraging them to own the labels people try to trap them in. Waitress isn't an insult. I'd say it's a stepping stone. And a damn noble one. My staff became family. We celebrated birthdays, helped each other move, and shared tips. And every night, when I locked up, I touched the old counter, the very spot he once leaned on, and whispered, "Thank you." Because without his arrogance, I might never have lit the fire that built Ember's Place. Success didn't come without storms. After the opening buzz faded, there were slow days, inventory issues, and difficult staff transitions. 1 month, our supplier shut down unexpectedly, and we had to scramble to find a backup before weekend brunch. Another time, the fryer broke down mid-service, and I spent 2 hours apologizing to every table while the kitchen flipped to stovetop-only mode. It was chaos, but we made it through. There were nights I stayed past 1 a.m. scrubbing the back kitchen floor myself, and mornings I arrived by 5 a.m. to prep pastries and mop a leak under the sink. My nails were ruined, my feet ached constantly, and I cried behind the walk-in more times than I'd ever admit out loud. But I wasn't just clocking in anymore. I was building something that carried my name, my values, and my fight. The community showed up for us in beautiful ways. A high school class started coming every Friday after drama rehearsal. Local artists donated pieces to hang on the walls. A jazz trio played for tips one slow Thursday and brought in a wave of new customers. Ember's Place was becoming more than I dreamed. It was becoming a landmark. Even Carla would occasionally walk in just to sit with tea and smile proudly from her usual window seat. She never asked for credit, but I gave her a special plaque above the pastry case that read Mentor, Believer, Firestarter. My heart swelled every time someone told me they felt seen in my restaurant, because that's all I ever wanted. To create a space where no one felt small, where no one ever heard, "You'll never be more than." About a year into running Ember's Place, I was invited to speak at a local women's leadership summit. I wore a blazer over my apron, laughed nervously at the microphone, and told my story. I thought maybe 5 people would show up, but the room was packed. Afterward, a line of women waited to speak with me. Some cried. One said her boss made her feel like she didn't deserve a raise because she was just admin. Another said she hadn't worked in years and felt invisible. I hugged each one. That moment shifted something in me. I started writing late-at-night blog posts, then essays, then a manuscript. Titled Embers Rising, it blended memoir and motivation. I self-published it with Carla's help and sold copies at the front counter next to the cinnamon rolls. To my shock, it sold out. Then a podcast featured me, then a magazine. Within months, I was being invited across the country to speak not as a waitress, not even just as a business owner, but as a voice for every underestimated woman who dared to fight back. I was flown to New York for a talk show segment. The producer told me she had once waited tables to and cried reading my story. They flashed side-by-side photos on screen, one of me in a wrinkled apron at age 23, the other of me now, with my name embroidered on my chef coat. They asked, "What would you say to that man if he were watching?" I smiled and said, "Thank you. Your doubt became my fuel." That clip went viral. Ember's Place got so many reservation calls we had to set up a wait list. But I made sure we always kept space for walk-ins because I remember the days I couldn't afford a reservation. Then one night, 3 years after the day I signed the deed, something unexpected happened. I was wiping down the counter after closing, the lights dimmed low, jazz humming in the background, when the doorbell chimed. I turned, surprised it was past closing. A man stepped in slowly. My heart stopped for a second. It was him. He looked older than I remembered. Tired, dressed in business casual, not the cocky suit. I was ready to ignore him, but his expression stopped me. Not smug, not amused, just ... hollow. He approached slowly, hands in pockets. "Can I talk to you for a second?" he asked. I didn't nod, but I didn't stop him either. He looked around the place, his eyes scanning the warm lighting, the busy walls full of community notes and local art. "I read about you," he said. Saw the segment. He cleared his throat. I was a real jerk back then. I don't even remember why I said that to you. I think I was insecure. I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I'd already won. I lost my job, he continued, got divorced, life sort of humbled me. Then he looked at me and said something I didn't expect. "You did something amazing. I hope you know that." It didn't feel satisfying, not in a dramatic way. It felt quiet, whole. I gave him a takeaway bag with pie in the house. "Good luck," I said, and he left. No fireworks, no applause. Just a full circle moment where the past tried to make peace. And I let it. Now, years later, Ember's Place is more than I ever dreamed. We've expanded to 2 more locations, each one preserving that original warmth. We train staff like family, host mentorship nights, and give scholarships to young girls in culinary school. I still work shifts, still roll dough by hand, still pour coffee on Sundays because I love the work. But now, when someone tells a young waitress that she never be more than that, I get an email. I get tagged in posts. I get letters from women who refuse to shrink back into the shadows. And I tell each one the same thing: let them underestimate you. Then burn so brightly they can't look away, because being a waitress never meant I lacked ambition. It meant I understood people. I knew how to read a table, diffuse tension, remember birthdays, and hustle without recognition. It taught me grit, grace, and yes, how to build a business from the crumbs they thought were beneath them. The name Ember's Place wasn't just a tribute, it was a truth. Fires start small, quietly, in ashes, sometimes, but they rise. And if you ever walk into one of our restaurants and see a young woman in an apron smiling proudly, know that she's not just a waitress. She might just be the next CEO or the next me. And if someone ever tells her otherwise, I hope she remembers my story. I hope she buys the restaurant too.